you very much for joining me. I'm Rosemary Armeo. This is my podcast, Beyond the Brink and Fighting Back. So I got into trouble this week because I posted something on my Facebook page about Lindsey Vonn, the skier. And I suggested that she might have acted her age, which is like 41, and not tried skiing down a mountain with a blown knee and a terrible injury. This ended up in a horrific crash. As most of you know, she's broken her leg. She's in the hospital. So I was vilified for my post as ageist and just awful. And I'm now taking a chance to redeem myself and to show that I actually do think people, even those much older than 41, can be amazing and inspirational. And I also warn you that this is a break from the usual gloom and doom that comes from my podcasts when they're about politics and economics. I want you to hear listen to a discussion between me and my former work colleague and friend, Susan Rife. She recently turned 70, and she has an unconventional plan for retirement. No rocking chairs are involved in this plan. Susan, welcome. And can you please tell my readers something about this adventure you embarked on last month?
Well, I lost my mind last summer and decided to apply to law school at the age of 69 at that time. And so in January, I became a first-year law student at Purdue Global Law School.
Whoa, the law school. Did you have to go through the whole LSATs and compete, or is this something of a shortcut to get into this school?
It's a bit of a shortcut. You can take the LSAT to gain admission, and if you do well enough on the LSAT, you get a little tuition discount. I was already eligible for some tuition discounts and so decided that I would just take the in-house sort of a mini LSAT exam in order to be admitted. And I did well enough on it to get into it, sort of to my shock. I have not been in a classroom in eons. It's been
decades at least,
decades
right?
and decades, like sometime in the last century, I was a student. So it's been a long time.
Susan is a neophyte in law, but you have a very long and distinguished career in journalism. I knew her as a journalist, an excellent one, doing book reviews especially, but all kinds of features and art writing at the Sarasota Herald Tribune. Can you tell us about your career first in journalism, and then try to connect it, if you can, please, for what you're doing now? How did you go from journalism into law?
Well, I wouldn't call myself having gone from journalism into law. I would call myself having gone from journalism into being a student again. I was 40 years as a print journalist, and it was mostly in features and the arts. It was nothing related to the law. But I think, like a lot of journalists and people who are involved in the news, you feel a connection to the law because the law underpins so much of what we see in the news. And so you're paying attention to what's happening in the law, even if you're not thinking, maybe when I grow up, I should be a lawyer, which I never thought. This is not like, I always wanted to be a lawyer and I never had the opportunity or anything like that.
This is not a case of that. You did not pine to be a lawyer as a little girl.
I really did not. I did not pine to be a lawyer as a little girl. I always wanted to be a journalist from the time I was in about the fourth grade. I'm one of the few people in journalism who went to college and studied journalism, majored in journalism, and became a journalist. Most people go another way around to get to journalism.
But I was one of those. I decided in the sixth grade. I remember this, that you even knew before I did.
Yeah.
So what happened last summer that put this idea or this impetus in your mind?
Well, there's a little bit of underpinning that goes with sort of the political climate of the last 10 years. I've been retired for 10 years. And you can see what's happening in the world and the importance of what's happening and the rule of law as an important underpinning to the democracy that we have. But I hadn't given any real thought about actually pursuing law until I read this book by Robert McFarlane called Is a River Alive? And this does not seem like a book that would necessarily lead you to the law. But the book is about he goes to see several rivers in the world, and the very first one is the headwaters of the in the Los Cedros cloud forest in Ecuador. And in 2008, Ecuador rewrote their constitution to give rights to nature. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting concept, that a river really is alive and nature really
Hmm.
is a living thing, that has legal rights. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And then Canadian mining interests wanted to come in and do gold mining up in the headwaters of this rainforest, and it was going to just completely destroy the environment up there. And a couple of judges said, "Nope, that ain't going to cut it." And I thought, well, look at that. I love the outdoors. I give lots of my disposable income to organizations that are involved in the environment. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, but I wouldn't have pursued it any further than that until, I mean, I live where there are law schools, but I'm also not going to go to law school in a bricks and mortar classroom. I'm just not. I'm not going to drive back and forth to Stanford or um, Santa Clara University for their school of law. And I was talking to a friend of mine who explained her husband's absence as Josh having gone to law school. He was going to law school. And I said, "What do you mean? You live in the mountains in Southern California, in the Southern Sierra. They're an hour away from a city, and not even a city with a law school. They're just hundreds of miles away from anything that would involve being able to be a law student." I didn't realize there were online law schools.
Hmm.
And my friend Josh is a student at Purdue Global. He's a year ahead of me in school. And so I learned about Purdue Global and thought I'd start taking a look at it. It interested me. I got the LSAT books and started looking at formal logic, and the things that go into all of that scared the hell out of me. Just
Yeah,
like,
I would not have gotten past that, I think.
what is it? Yeah, it's quite alarming, but it was at the same time, it's just really interesting to me. And so I just kept kind of nipping away at it and looking at what was involved in going to school again. And I thought, I can afford to do this. I have the time to do it. My friend Josh, I said, "What's your end game?" And he said, "I don't have an end game. My end game is the journey. I'm going to just go along and see what happens." And I thought, well, that would be completely antithetical to the way I've lived my life. So why not try that? It's time to shake things up at 70 and do things differently. And it is an adjustment.
Yeah, I was going to
This
ask
is
you. You began the end of January, classes began. How's it been?
actually, yeah, a little, I'm on actually week 5. So we started on January the 7th. I'm in module 5 out of 15 modules in a term. And I have 3 classes. I have contracts, torts, and introduction to legal analysis. And 2 out of the 3 are going pretty well.
And what's the hard one?
Contracts. Contracts is just a bear. My There's so much to remember. And I think you mentioned in your questions to me the whole leaky brain thing and the things that you can't hold on to in your head any longer. And part of my desire to do this was I felt like my brain was just getting lazy. I've
Yeah.
been out of the workforce for a decade. I'm just doing whatever I feel like doing. I'm sometimes thinking and sometimes not thinking. And I thought, this is just not good. I should
Okay.
think a little harder.
My listeners have to know that when she says that, she sounds like she's lounging on the beach. Susan is a world traveler. You've, you've been really around the world. You live with your mother and your husband and some animals. They keep changing.
Yes.
You have
Yeah.
children in various parts of the world that you visit. You're an amazing knitter and weaver. You used to run around on a Vespa. I don't know what you do now, but that was only when you were not hiking in the woods and doing all sorts of races. You were not just sitting around before you did this.
No, but using, I wasn't thinking hard. I wasn't focused. It was just really easy for me in reading nonfiction or fiction in particular. Just let my eyes run over the words. And at the end of the book, I could say, well, I read that. Uh, I don't know what it was about. So this
Well,
is really making me focus. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't know if
no.
it's going to lead me to a JD in a few years or not. I don't know. I may not survive contracts.
Well, it is a question that I knew I was going to ask you. I mean, I practice German on Duolingo and I
Right.
cannot master it because I keep forgetting. You learn
Oh,
several vocabulary words, and a week later, I've forgotten more than a few of them. And
right.
contracts and torts is no easy class either. Is your memory improving? Do you just keep practicing extra hard? What's the? I really like this as a feint against dementia that you've gone to law school.
It seems kind of ridiculous. There are probably other things that I might have done instead, as my children have said to me, Mom, there are other things you could do, better uses of your time and money. And I'm like, well, this is what I want to do right now. And I will keep doing it until I don't want to do it. And, no harm, no foul. And, I feel like I get people like you and other friends who are like, go, go, go. And that maybe that'll keep the pressure on for me to keep on. But really, if it becomes truly onerous, I'll say, lesson learned. It wasn't for me, and I'll do something different. But for now, I plug along, and it's humbling. It's humbling. They tell you a lot at the beginning that you are a beginner. The average age of people in this program is 42. How people do this and work full
Uh,
time,
yeah.
I do not know. Because I'm probably putting 6 hours a day into focused attention on this and
Uh,
thinking if I had to do this at the end of the line after a day of work, I don't know how I would do it.
I know, and no alcohol either. That kind of ruins your
Yeah,
even more. I know.
I
I had
know.
asked you about what your typical day is like now. You get up very early. Tell us what it's like, how you go to law school and live a life.
Well, so my routine is to get up early and do an hour or 90 minutes of just kind of review stuff. The way the program is organized, there's an hour-long seminar once a week in each class. And then there's a ton of reading, of course, and a whole suite of videos each video is followed by kind of a little mini test, a little mini quiz. So I'll watch those videos and take notes off those in the morning, or I'll reorganize notes. So first off, I'll just kind of do a little bit of not high level work where I've had a cup or two of coffee and I'm okay.
Mhm.
And then I'll go for a walk after breakfast and do the dog thing and that sort of business. And then I try to do another focused 90 minutes before lunch and another focused 90 minutes after lunch of the hard stuff. Because even when I was working, that my most productive hours were really right around that middle of the day, that I could do pretty good work in the late morning and pretty good work until middle of the afternoon, and then it would all fall apart. And that's what I'm finding now as well, is that if I do three 90-minute chunks, I might squeeze a fourth one in, but it probably won't be really quality attention.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. And then I've handed off housework and cooking to my dear husband. And
Steve, he's a saint.
yeah,
Was he supportive of this, or did he say you're off your rocker?
both my mom and my husband said go for it.
Oh,
And most of my friends, I mean, some friends went like, huh, but most people are like, this is fantastic. I think you should do it.
oh yeah. As soon as you
I,
posted about it on Facebook, I said, "Oh, I want to talk to you about this."
yeah,
Your
yeah.
daughter's not so much.
Well, Christina's come around, but my daughter, who's an attorney, said, you are out of your mind. Yeah.
Is she the person you can call on contracts or other things that you get stuck on?
Well, no. I'd like to be able to tap into her as a resource more, but because she's made her opposition to the project pretty clear, I think she might be coming around a little bit. But I don't feel like I can bounce things off of her because she thinks I'm nuts. And
Yeah.
I mean, she has evidence. It's a
this is
crazy thing to
fantastic.
do.
So tell me about this online thing. You are not actually in a classroom
No.
interacting with 20-year-olds. You don't see the other students in the class.
I see them like I see you on Zoom. So
Right,
it's a Zoom class, and so I can scroll through people's little pictures at the top of the screen. And you're very much encouraged to engage in online study groups that you could set up through Zoom or find other people in your vicinity. There are people in California who are doing this. There's a two or three in the Bay Area where I live, and I haven't run them to ground yet. But I think it might not be the worst idea in the world just to have some people to,
right, right.
kind of bounce things off of. Um, like I said, the age range is kind of all over the place. I think most people are in their sort of 30 to 50 zone, but
Right.
there's some few
Which is older.
outliers.
It's
Right.
older than the usual law student demographic.
Yeah. There's not too many people in their early 20s in the program. Most people who are, in their early 20s are wanting to go to law school full time and
Right,
have that whole experience. Well, I would never spend that kind of money or the time, and I didn't do it when I was 25 years old.
right.
And I think I would be so self-conscious to walk into a physical classroom where I would be probably twice the age of the professor.
Well, I did a little research and I shared it with you on older students in law school. And
Hmm.
there are other people who have actually been in that classroom kind of learning in their
Yeah,
70s, even older than you. 79-year-old, I think, is the
that
oldest
is
that I
crazy. That's
found.
even crazier than me.
And it takes us a lot of courage and determination, I think, to do that. We are not encouraged to try new things when we get past a certain age.
That's really true. And I really was feeling right around the time of my birthday a couple of weeks ago that I felt like I was walking on a waterbed, kind of uncertain territory that it felt like I was in a really alien place. And I don't like to be uncomfortable. Nobody likes to be uncomfortable. But I think that's maybe where growth happens is when you're
Mhm.
uncomfortable. Um, and I don't know, I might not be able to tolerate the discomfort for over the long haul. I'm hoping that a term or so into this that it will be a little less uncomfortable. But the learning curve at the beginning is really steep. You would think that somebody with the kind of writing skills that you and I have might be pretty good at writing essays, law
No,
essays. No,
it's
it's
not
a different
unusual.
animal.
Yeah, it's not unusual for journalists to study law.
Right.
And as an editor, I always hate it when I had one of my workers going to law school because their writing went totally to hell. It's a complete
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah.
your writing is beautiful. It's warm. It's conversational. That's not what's
Not
required.
necessary.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I can't think if I've turned an essay in yet. I think I have the first one due tomorrow night. And it's formulaic. There's a,
Right.
it's very like writing by an outline. And that's not how I've written uh, in my whole life. I don't remember how to outline
Evidently.
anything.
No.
It's completely alien. But I try to remember that if you didn't go to J school and didn't know anything about how to write a news story, it would be pretty alien.
Mhm.
As you know from having
Right.
people try to cover a city council meeting, and
Right.
they come to you and their story says the meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. with the Pledge of Allegiance, right?
Yes,
That
absolutely. So
that
I,
it's
I
a
always
different
teach in my
thing.
classes that a good writer can write in any formula required. And if William Shakespeare could write amazing, beautiful poetry, words for the ages in a sonnet
Mhm.
form with that
Yeah,
strict rhyming scheme and a
right,
meter, then yeah, to take a formula and to fit into it, anyone should be able to
right.
do it. But
Yeah.
easier to say that than to actually do it.
Well, it's a learned skill, and I keep trying to remind myself that it's like in a sense, law and English share. Here, let me draw it a little bit differently. So let's just say that I enrolled in a French class. I don't speak French. French and English share the same alphabet, and you may even know some words in French, but you don't speak French. And in 2 more weeks, I'm going to have to write a 500-word essay in French. It's problematic. You can learn French, but it's pretty slow. It's pretty slow. And I
Hmm.
feel like if I was taking this one class at a time instead of three at a time, I might hang in there on it. Really, the contracts thing is just killing me. There's so much to learn. And, it's not open book, which is ridiculous. The world is open book.
Why is it not open book? I didn't know that.
Well, it just isn't. I mean, law school exams are not open book. Everything is
Huh.
locked down. If you go to take the LSAT in person or the bar exam in
Right,
person,
right,
you will
right.
be allowed to have a pencil and a piece of paper, and everything else gets checked into a locker.
Yeah.
You can't have anything in your pockets. It's the same thing that they do it online with a lockdown browser that doesn't allow your computer to look at anything else. You've got to clear all the stuff off your desk. You can't have your note cards or your flashcards or anything like that to remind you of things. But we've gotten very dependent on being able to just Google the answer to anything.
True, true.
And so to have it be like I really must remember these concepts, it's quite daunting. It's just a lot.
I want to remind my listeners that I'm talking with a very old friend. We worked together years ago in the Sarasota Herald Tribune, where Susan Rife was head of the features department, a book reviewer, oh, par excellence. I didn't have to edit you directly, so my breaks from work were to read what Susan and her staff put out. And I also have admired her athleticism and her, you're an amazing knitter. You could like knit a house. I'm pretty convinced, or at least a new pet. And having retired from journalism, she's now decided to go to law school at the ripe old age of 70. And she's negotiating that. And that's what we're talking to her about. So yes, like you, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about AI. And I sent it some questions. I put in your situation. I said, okay, what would you ask this woman? And I'm going to ask her a couple of those questions now. See how I did.
Okay.
Transparent. I did not invent these questions, but are you happy?
I'm challenged and I'm not depressed, which
Hmm.
has been my MO in recent years. A lot in recent political history. I have woken up in the morning being like, well, hell,
Hmm.
or words to that effect.
Hmm.
Now I'm not leaping out of bed, ready to conquer today's module in contracts or torts, but I'm challenged by it. And
Yeah.
I think that is a good thing. Um, I'm not sure, I'm not sure that happiness necessarily lies in, I don't know, in law or any other thing necessarily. I don't know. Um, I'm challenged and interested in it, and so it's holding my interest at the moment, and has now for several months. And frankly, if that just wanes, and I'm starting to wake up in the morning going, "Oh my God, what have I done?
What's the most,
This is not fun,"
no, that you're not doing this for enjoyment, that at least so
Well,
far.
the thing is I can do it. I can study it for as long as it interests me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I get out on the other end of it, if I make it all the way through this program and pass the bar and get a JD and am a bar certified attorney, I don't have to make a nickel.
Right.
I don't have to go work for anybody. If I want to do nothing but pro bono environmental work or immigrant work or elder law or whatever, that's I can do that. Or I can just say, you know what? I learned a whole lot of interesting stuff about the law, and that's cool. And I'll be 75 years old and I'll have, I don't know, I'll have a lot of stuff stuffed in my head, you know?
Yeah, you could take up skydiving next. That's true.
Oh, I don't see that happening.
So, Susan, we talked about how journalism ruined you as a lawyerly writer. You're going to have to writing. Has anything that you've taken from journalism helped? Is it making it easier or giving you a new perspective on law? And I realize you're very early in studying it, but
I think it's mostly, in my sort of moaning in social media about how terrified I was that people said, your background as a journalist, I think, has prepared you for this because you have a curious mind. You're interested in things.
yeah.
You want to know stuff. And, just wanting to try to figure out what the heck the Supreme Court is up to.
Hmm.
Nina Totenberg does a fabulous job of explaining it. But, the ability to read a case and to read what other journalists write about the law and to be able to kind of go behind that and to see what else that might mean, I think will be good. I don't know. I don't think that my writing will serve me. I just don't think it will.
Yeah.
Although I'm beginning to feel like I should make it my mission to make legalese a little less impenetrable. I'll tell you what, though, you look at these cases from the 19th century, oh my gosh, they are completely insane. At least contemporary stuff is written and contemporary rulings are not
Right,
written
right.
quite as impenetrably as stuff
I
from 100
always was
years ago.
amazed in teaching beginning journalism classes at how little my students, who were at that point basically the readers that we were writing for, how little they knew
Right.
the word indictment, which we use in every story, but they don't know what an indictment
They
is.
don't know what it is.
Right, or
Right.
a whole bunch of examples that would always stuck with me. So you now are switching, and I guess journalists are code switchers, and you've learned that too. That you can
Yeah.
to the lawyers, and then you have to translate to like normal people, and
Right.
now you're the opposite. So I can see that. It's again very early, but is there a specific area in the law that you're leaning towards or you're passionate about? Environmental law, elder law?
It's too early to say, and law school doesn't sort of give you the option to focus early on. You got to lay down the foundation with all this stuff. Like really contracts? I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Why? Ugh, I don't. I don't think this is going to be my bailiwick. But you gotta work through contracts. You got to work through torts. You got to work through criminal law and civil procedure. And man, I want constitutional law to come up a lot sooner than it is
Oh yeah.
in the
Again,
program.
because that relates to the reason you decided to take this up with
Yeah, yeah.
another
And
country
just
right
because you
now.
see that in your daily, I guess, in your daily life. Although one of the things that's become abundantly clear about contracts is we take for granted the contractual relationships that we engage in all the time, the unspoken contractual arrangements. And if it was as simple as they make it in the video, where you walk into the coffee shop and say, I'd like a cup of coffee black.
Mhm.
That's a contract you've engaged in. You've entered into a contract with a coffee place when you order a cup of coffee at a restaurant, and your coffee person doesn't even have to accept your offer to buy a cup of coffee. They just hand you the coffee. Contract has taken place.
Mhm.
So, but on the other hand, you start reading the finer points of contract law and you think, holy cow, the stuff that we just
Mhm.
sign our not we click the I agree button on the screen, and man, you are buying yourself a big bunch of uh, problems if you
Mhm.
get crosswise on that sort of thing.
That's very intriguing. Tell me this Susan Rife, who is a former journalist, retired for a little bit of time and now is going back to law school. You've told us contracts definitely are your bête noire at the moment. See, Fred. Uh, what's been not a subject but a lesson that you've had so far, a module that wow, it got your attention and you said this is what I was after.
Well, the torts class, which I frankly I didn't have any idea what a tort was. And I still have barely the most tenuous grasp on what a tort is after 5 weeks. But they're civil wrongs. So things like battery and trespass to chattels. Did you know that there was such a thing as trespass to chattel? And you know what chattels are? They're like women used to be chattel. Women
Yes.
and children used to be chattel. The chattel is just possessions. They're things that you own. They're like mobile things that you own versus land, which is a different thing. And so that sort of thing, battery and assault and false imprisonment, it's just funny stuff that you don't even think very much about what in the world this stuff means. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I had no idea 2 weeks ago what conversion was. And that's if somebody borrows your car and wrecks it. First of all, they've trespassed to chattel because they took your car without your permission. And then if they totaled it, then it's conversion. And it's just like, it's just interesting things. Where are the damages and that kind of a thing. So I don't know. I'm not sure why that has caught my attention and contracts is like chemistry was for me in high school, where my teacher said you can't see the forest for the trees, and I'm like, yep,
I'm having flashback when you're talking about
flashbacks to
chemistry. Oh
chemistry,
my gosh,
right?
that's bad.
Same sort of thing. So
Do you wish that you had known something before you began, when you were in that lovely stage when you had been accepted, but you hadn't actually started the classes, which I think is always the best thing. A new job or a new project is the anticipation before you actually start and the work begins. Do you wish you
right.
had something then that you've figured out now?
I, I don't think so. This particular program does a really good job of telling you what you don't know and what you should be prepared to understand. They have a non-essential class before the classes start, called fundamentals, and it just kind of teaches you like how to be a law student. And one of the really good professors, he's my torts professor, is kind of all over the place in this particular program, and he has his own podcast called How to Law School, and
Wow.
they it's not like you're unprepared for the reality, and they're really blunt about the fact that it is really hard, and that you better be prepared to put the time in, and if you're not willing to make the commitment for the time, and the study and the pain that goes with it, then you're probably in the wrong place.
I think I admire that the most, is that you've conquered this fear of failure that the most professional and high performing people like us, if I can say that. I couldn't learn to cross country ski because I kept falling and I felt embarrassed. And
Mm,
you have really put yourself out on a line doing this. You could fail at this. You've
I
just
could.
it's kind of
Yeah,
terrifying.
fail again, fail better,
Yeah.
and I might, it could go completely down in flames, and here I am out there, being public about it, and it, but I think adults, it's true, as adult learners, we're really embarrassed. We're really embarrassed by what we don't know and how bad we are at it and how poorly we speak
Right.
French and how poorly I play the ukulele after years of playing the ukulele. I still am just a
No, she's really
poor
good,
ukulele
everybody. She's
player.
actually
No,
really
I'm
good
really
at
not.
this.
I'm really not good at playing the ukulele. I'm a permanent advanced beginner. I'm a good knitter. I'm a good knitter, but you know what it
Wow.
is? I can follow the
Pattern.
directions. I can follow the pattern, and I still have to look up particular stitches now and then, but I'm good at them. And so some things I'm good at, I'm not embarrassed by. And if I have to stand up in front of a group and play the ukulele, I'm going to just tank it. Man, I can do things just in the privacy of my own room, but boy, put me up in front of people and it's just not pretty. So again, it's just trying to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, with trying to learn
Right.
something. And if I go down in flames, at least I'm not taking the
That's
United
right.
States government down with me.
No, you tried it. You get that. That's the big points. I think right there
Yeah,
that you
and
did as good as
I
she.
frankly don't know. I kind of hate to quote Nike ads, but this business where they say whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
I've been an admirer of Bill McKibben, and you must know him. He's the
Yeah,
environmental writer, and he talks about how Americans over the age of 60 should be using the time and the experience that they've had to work on something that's meaningful to them. And it seems
right.
to me that's what you've done, and it's totally worthwhile. But I'm also worried about all the things that are just fun that you're supposed to have time for and space for in retirement. What are you giving up to do all this?
Well, a bunch. Um, I I'm not quite the world traveler that you make me out to be, but I have been able to travel some in the last, post-retirement years, and I'm frankly terrified to try to plan a trip and try to, stay current on what I'm doing at the same time. The breaks between terms are really short. It's
Right.
not like college now, which seems like they knock off around Thanksgiving and go back at the end of January. It's
Right.
literally about a 10-day turnaround between terms. And I don't know whether I'll have the bandwidth to um, plan a big trip and try to cram it into that 10-day
Right.
period.
Right.
So I got nothing on my travel agenda other than little local things that I can manage, without being a big thing. So that's probably off the table for a little while. It also is kind of off the table because, as mentioned earlier, we live with my mom, who's almost 94, and her health is not as robust as one would like. So, it's always like as you know from your mother's last period of time, it's always like you're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah, that I definitely know that feeling. It's
Yeah, and frankly, the shoe dropping might be what knocks me out of law school.
yeah,
That, if my mother's health gets much worse, or if she dies, or more like when she dies, that if that, isn't conveniently timed between the breaks and the terms, that I
yeah,
frankly don't see how I would stay caught up on schoolwork
yeah.
while managing that.
Yeah, I can attest that those last few months are an intensity in the work and attention required from you. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a plus.
yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I do have one last question I wanted to ask you, and that is, you're a journalist, so I know you're still looking at the news, even though you're busy. Do you find yourself critiquing decisions by, well, there's one out just today out of a federal judge decided that California cannot have a law that says ICE can't wear masks. Do you find yourself critiquing rulings or actions by courts and judges?
I I am not doing that yet, but I think that I'm beginning to have more of an appreciation for the process that lawyers and judges go through in making these arguments and in making these decisions. That it's pretty easy, I think, to look at the Supreme Court and say, what the heck is even going on?
Right,
Um, but yeah, I know it's just crazy. But to see the way the process works. And as a journalist, this is one of the things that I really loved writing about was the process. I
right.
love to be, how does a museum exhibit come together? What's the behind the scenes stuff that makes something happen?
Ah,
That you as the consumer of something don't see. So to see what happens underneath the surface, I think as I get more fluent in the language, that I probably will read those cases with more knowledge about what's going on and more understanding
oh, that's
and
a
greater
terrific.
appreciation of the journalists who write about it. Because man,
Yeah,
you get a decision handed to you and you got to turn it right now.
right around. Yeah, I
Yeah,
always remember we were both in Sarasota at the time when the decision came down in the Bush Gore election. Remember, it was like
right.
30 days after the election.
Yeah.
There were 12, or I'm sorry, nine different opinions. There was not even if you were in the majority, they each filed separately.
They all had
There's reporters on air looking at this raft of paper, trying to
raft of
put it
paper and
together.
the
Oh, wow. Right,
concurring and the dissenting things, and you think, and you're
right.
trying to unscramble that live on the air.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's That's really a
Yes.
pretty
Okay,
amazing
so
thing.
put yourself for this last question in your old feature editor role. What's the best movie and or book about the court system that you would recommend as a
Oh
budding law
man.
student? That's a good question. I should have warned you I was
Oh
going to ask
man, you should have given me a heads up about that so that I could think about it. I have to say that, I watched The Paper Chase from 1973 quite recently. And had I watched The Paper Chase, I probably would not have gone to law school.
you.
I'd already jumped off the cliff on that. But that's Harvard, and those are guys in their early 20s, and it was a whole different thing. But the intensity of what goes on in trying to make your brain wrap around it, I think it's really fun to watch. I think it's a good little insight. Also, the cases that they use are the same cases they keep on using. The
Right,
same stuff.
right.
First year law students, they got all the same cases.
That's funny.
Nothing's
I'm,
changed.
I'm, I'm going to assign you. Maybe you can think of a couple of more books and movies, and we can post those on
All right, I'll see if
the
I can
written
come up with
addendum to
something.
this. We have run out of time. We're talking with my old friend and work colleague Susan Rife about her new adventure, which is going to law school, starting law school at the age of 70. We end our podcast traditionally with a toast. I have a white wine in hand here.
Well, I've
And
got iced tea.
I see. Okay, there you go. I am toasting to the idea that it is never too late, that life can change dramatically in just an instant at any time while you're still breathing, that new beginnings can start at any point in your life. And all it takes, I say all it takes is the courage to make a leap, jump off the cliff, not pay attention to any detractors, and function without sleep. Susan, more power to you.